I met Vanji back in 2013. And at the time, she had a 6-month-old McKenna. So she was, crawling in our living room, and she was just like a little baby. And she brought the issue of her being undocumented, right? And because she was undocumented, she had no access to health care when she gave birth. And because she's undocumented, even if her daughter McKenna is a Canadian-born child, she was a Canadian citizen in paper, but she had no access to any kind of social services that other Canadian citizens would have, right, without question. And so I think with Vanji, even if she was undocumented, being part of a community organization gave her the courage to campaign for her child McKenna. And so when McKenna was about like 1.5, 2 years old, right, we saw that other kids of undocumented, they were Canadian-born children, but their mother was undocumented, and so these kids had no access to health care. They can go to a doctor in the hospital, but they have to pay out of their pockets. But they were Canadian citizen. So then Vanji agreed to have a campaign for these Canadian-born children to be recognized as real Canadian citizens, wherein they would be able to access any social services that other Canadians can access. So we launched a campaign because this is a healthcare campaign. It was a provincial campaign, right? So we called on Alberta, the province of Alberta, to recognize Canadian-born children of undocumented mothers. So we had a petition. And again, it was our network from different community organizations, from the unions, other progressive organizations that supported the petition. They circulated the petition, and we were able to gather signatures that within a month, the province of Alberta recognized the rights of these Canadian-born children. Of course, they still had to apply for it, right? It wasn't like instantly. And so Vanji was helping the other moms to apply for the access to healthcare of their Canadian-born children. So it was a victory, but implementation is still painful even up to now. The mothers have to apply for it. There's still, barriers, right? A lot of them are not aware, like a lot of institutions are not aware of this, right? So it's still, it's still a struggle. But that was a victory in itself, being able to fight for the rights of Canadian-born children of undocumented moms and their access to health care. The issue of children of migrants, that's something that we have seen in the past. As Canadian-born children of undocumented moms, they weren't able to get the monthly child tax benefit, for example, right? And so even if the moms are paying taxes, for example, because they're undocumented, their kids are not able to access whatever child tax benefit that they're entitled to, right? And other social services. For children of other temporary foreign workers, if the parents have lost status, then by the next school year, when the kids have to register, right, and the registrar would be asking, they'd be asking the parents, are you a temporary foreign worker? They'd be asking for that visa, work permit. And if that's expired, your child will not have access to education, right? Even if if education should be a universal right. And so right now we have issues of undocumented families, not just Filipinos, but other nationalities that have come to Migrante because of, their situation as undocumented. Their kids are not able to access, they can go to school. They cannot continue their education when in the past they were able to, but because the parents have become undocumented, all of a sudden they cannot be admitted into schools anymore. So it is an ongoing campaign. Right now, it depends on the school. If they have a progressive, say, principal who is supportive of the cause. Otherwise, they would say, well, there's no budget. We brought this to the Migrante and Aware, our partner organization, have brought this to the city. We've been having conversations about that. So it is an ongoing campaign. They would, that the access of children of undocumented workers to school, they have been denied because of their parents' status. In the last year, when we had campaigns for a couple of our undocumented organizers like Evangeline and Danilo, right? They have become the faces of the campaign for regularization, asking for status for undocumented migrants here in Canada who have been here working, contributing to the economy, and yet living in the shadows. But Vanchi and Danilo, they became the faces of the regularization campaign, talking about the situations of undocumented workers, right? And they have become an inspiration to the undocumented workers. And so in the last year, the last few months, when we have our regular Migrants Cafe session, for example, and we were talking about the situation of undocumented, we had more and more undocumented members that started attending. We would have the cafe and they would bring food, they would bring like their baked Filipino dessert, and they'd be like, oh, I'm Kuya this and I'm Kuya that. Like Kuya means big brother. And I'm like, oh, I know your name from my list, but I'm only seeing them for the first time. And then the next cafe, and then the next cafe. And then they would join and they would talk and they would start sharing their experiences. And I thought, this is something that's really significant in our organizing, right? Like the workers are here participating, but the undocumented showing their faces when they've been living in fear all these years, 10 years, 8 or 12 years of living as an undocumented worker, living in fear all the time. And yet they're here with us, sharing food and talking and introducing themselves. I think for Migrante, that's a victory in itself, gaining their trust as an organizer. And yet for the undocumented workers to be able to have that confidence and say, here I am and I'm ready to participate. I think it's an amazing experience as a community organizer.